we're going to organize our objects into a layout panel instead of just an ordinary panel. And what this allows us to do is organize how the objects show up on the screen. So, I currently have here, I believe, 9 different objects. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Right. So I'm going to organize them into a 3x3 grid panel. I'm going to show you this in a second. I have my 2 imports, import javax.swing.asterisk, so that all this works, and I have import java.awt. It says unused, but we may use that here, we may have used it for something else. Oh, we use it on the next one, on the next video dealing with grouping the buttons. Here in the public class burger, I need to add the text extends JFrame. This extension deals with inheritance and superclasses, which we'll talk about later on. Once I have the objects created, this becomes very simple. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do set layout equals, actually I don't believe it is equals, it is set layout parentheses new grid layout, and it's going to be 3, 3. So this is our 3x3, and then the other 2 set spacing in between the different objects. So I'm going to set them for 5 and 5. That's normally a pretty safe bet. So once again, this set layout, instead of an equals, it's a parenthesis, becomes a new grid layout. So 3x3 grid, so we're going to make these objects go 3 across by 3 up and down, and 5 pixels in between each object. So to add the items, this is a little bit different, but it's actually a little bit simpler. Instead of doing panel1.add, we just simply now go add, and then the way we add the objects, if we were looking at this on a table, we'd be going from left to right and then up to down, just like reading a book. So I'm going to make it where my text boxes are in the first column. So I'm going to add, instead of the text box first, let me add the first label. Then I'm going to add the first text box, so it goes beside it. And then for a radio button, I guess I did add the radio button there first, so we will change that to a label. So our first column right now, or our first row I should say, consists of the label, the text box, and a radio button. So to keep that same pattern, and you could even, if it helps you, comment this out. First row, then second row, add label 2, add, we'll do the second number, I don't know, I just named these kind of random, A2, and then the third row, take what's left over. So I have a third label, I do. I don't have another text box. I do have a button, so we'll add the button, B1. And then, what do I have left over? Oh, a third radio button. There we go. So right now, my first row will consist of the label, the text box, radio button, second, label, text box, radio button, third, label, button, radio button. Now that I had this made here, and again, I'm using my burger class, just repeating it, I'm going to go over here, and instead of creating the separate frame, this created essentially the panel. So all this is part of the panel that we were creating earlier. So now I just gotta go create the instance of this class. So burger frame 2, I'm creating the object. It's the same thing. Equals new burger, and there were no parameters, so don't pass anything over. I'm going to change the title to Hello World. And I'm going to leave everything else as is. Now, why is this airing out here? There we go. Okay. So, this did exactly what we did before. We created an instance of the class, which is also creating an object. Since we're using the same name as the class name, it's creating an object. And we filled out all our different parameters, titles, set to close, make it visible. Let me show you the run. And there is what we created with a label, text box, 3 different radio buttons. And that is how you use a layout panel.